Hello and good morning, everyone. Happy National Pizza Day. If you didn't know, today is National Pizza Day. So eat a slice today, maybe for ABA. Hey. As usual, I'm Nigel Mbayak, and today I'm joined with a familiar face here, Jorge Fernandez. Hey, Jorge, how's it going?
I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. You know, kind of wanting a pizza right now. But anyways, today we've got a great session for you all. We've got Vault Lifecycles, and kind of a little pun there on how to unlock them. So just to clarify, expect to be here for the next 20 to 30 minutes or so, going over some of these Vault Lifecycle things. Jorge kind of expand on that a little bit more. But if you do have any questions, definitely do type those into the chat box at any time, and we'll address those when we get a chance to do so. So with that, I think we'll get started here, Jorge.
All right. You know, maybe we should have called them locking vault cycles, actually. I don't know. Just thought. We'll see in a little bit why. So, we're here today to discuss unlocking vault life cycles or locking them. Really, I guess you could say it's giving the right access to the right people at the right time. That's the way I like to put it, really, because what it comes down to is you want to make sure people aren't modifying files when they're not supposed to. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So the goal for today is to go over life cycles and how you can control who's got the access and when. And what we'll do is we'll walk through how you plan that out. And so the theories, or I guess the concept I'm giving you guys today, is from our experience, our tried and true method of making sure that your vault is set up correctly. So we'll look at the setup as well. We'll talk through some of the really key things that you need to know about there, how to set it up, what the different things do, and then we'll actually put it to use so you can see how it's actually used. Make sure that you fully understand what the different options are. So where we usually start, whether we're talking to a customer and about how they should do it, or if we're going to do it, or even a combined effort, is you always want to start off with a flow chart, laying out the workflow of how you want everything to look. So this is an example one that we're going to look at today, and just to show you a little example of how we do it. For example, I use something called Lucid Chart. There's a lot of different ways to do that. There's one I've heard of called Praxis, actually, from Autodesk. There's even people using it with AutoCAD. I personally like to use this one myself, and this is a very typical one that most people will set up, where we'll be able to say, hey, we have something that's a work in progress, and we have different groups that we want to be able to say they can change them and modify actual files. And they want a specific group to be able to say, let's go ahead and move it to a doc review where it locks the files. And then specific people can read it. No one can modify or delete it. And some people won't even realize there's something there. And then finally to an approved state where everybody can read it, no one can modify it, and it can even go back to work in progress and do an automatic revision bump. And very commonly, a lot of times, hey, we all sometimes make mistakes and type in our name wrong or something like that. So we have a quick change. So you don't have to change the rev, but you just do a very quick edit. And only specific people can do that. So this is a very typical process, right? Some people like to add more stages. Some try to simplify a little bit more. Some even have an obsolete so you don't delete files and you only put it into, I guess you can call it an archive. What we're going to do today is we're going to do a simple flow. I'm going to show you how to set up one that we simply go from work in progress to approved. When work in progress, most engineering, product design people and administrators can modify files. Sales can't see it, but we'll have an approved state where at that point, all right, now it starts to get released. More people can see it, but it's locked down. So we'll go through this specific process right now inside of Vault. So where you go for all this is under the Tools Administration tab or button. The first thing you want to establish is the different groups that you're going to have, like we showed in the workflow. Typically, we'd sit down with the customer and whiteboard it out, figure out what's the right workflow, who needs access to what and when. So typically, we would go to global settings first. If you don't have users, you would assign your users, and then under groups, we go ahead and create different groups here. You can say new group. You can edit the existing one as well. You can give them the specific roles they need, what vaults are going to be inside of. And they can even have subgroups. So you can have groups within groups. You just want to be really careful with that because you could have roles that could interfere with each other, right? So I don't typically recommend that, but it is a possibility. And then down here you can add the actual members, the actual users that are inside of Vault to be a part of this specific group. By the way, you can have multiple people be able to, you can have the same person be in multiple groups. So once you've established all the groups you're going to have, so you can say who's going to have access to what and when, then we're ready to move forward with going to the Tools, Administration Settings, and now we go to Vault Settings to manipulate how we want to have life cycles. So a lot of times, some of you on the phone might recall, I probably had this conversation with you where there is features that you can use out of the box. So life cycle definitions here, there's some already defined. So there's a basic one that's just work in progress for review, release, and an obsolete one. This is a pretty common one that we sometimes reuse, work in progress, review, release, quick change, and obsolete, kind of close to this workflow that I showed earlier. And the only thing is you do have to edit them, right? So these are out of the box. You might have to say, I do want a rev bump, I don't want a rev bump. Hey, for revision schemes, I use numerical versus alpha or something like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create one from scratch so we can walk through all the different options. When I go to new here, I can give this one a name. The first thing we want to do is, after we give it a name, is say, all right, what categories are we going to use this in? If I come over here and select engineering, engineering are the ones that are going to be the CAD files. So AutoCAD files, Inventor files, parts, assemblies, and drawings are all going to automatically fall under engineering. Later on, I'll show you a little bit how you can actually create your own categories if you'd like instead. You'll notice there's some for Office, so if you have people who want to control Office documents that have a slightly different workflow, you can make different lifecycle definitions for that as well, or use them for both even for that matter. You'll notice if I scroll down, there's even other ones. As of 2016, actually, I should say 2015 R2, items are something that you can also control life cycles of inside of Vault as well. Just a little side note for you. So with that said, down here we can start to tell it what life cycles we want to create. The first one, I'll call it WIP for work in progress, and I'll put a quick description for it. Okay. We'll create another one now. We'll call this one approved. By the way, you'll see, you will talk about approved and released throughout this. It's really an interchangeable word in this case. So this is just a nice little description for everybody to know what they're doing. And now if I come over here, we'll see the state description for each, and we'll have these different tabs. So through these tabs is how we start to control who's going to have access and when. You're going to get an entire list here of all the different possibilities of how you can move back and forth. That's why we have that workflow chart, just so we can reference that. So if I edit this, the first thing it's going to tell you is, hey, you got to save this lifecycle first before you move forward. So I could have hit apply before getting this message. But now that we're here, we can start to say how this transition is going to happen. The first thing is criteria. So the criteria is going to allow you to say, hey, a specific property, for example, has to be filled out before you can actually make this transition. So you can use the different properties that are available inside of here to be able to control that. Under actions, we can start to say, hey, there's going to be an action that I want you, Vault, to do before I make this transition. It could be bump the revision, for example. Some people I've seen do use like secondary revision, so that when they go back and forth between like work in progress and review, it bumps it up like 0.2, 0.3, so they know how many times it went back and forth. That's one of the nice things to have here. It's configurable, right? Down here, you'll see that you can also have it make sure that it checks in children. So if you have a drawing, make sure it checks in the actual part for it. If you have an assembly, then make sure it checks in the parts for it. The last one here is security. You'll notice by default, it's open to everybody. The out-of-the-box ones are set up this way too, by the way, because they don't know what groups you're going to create, of course. So it is up to us to come in here and configure this. So if we go to Add, and we'll filter to the groups, we'll say, okay, let's add the administrators to this, because this is a work in progress, engineering, and product design. These folks right here are not going to be entering documentation under this category to be able to manage their files. They very well could, right? We're going to decide not to right now. So these folks are allowed to make this transition. If they are not inside of this list, then they will be denied. I can explicitly come in here and deny as well, but you don't have to add every single group. That way when you get a new group, new users and so forth, you don't have to come in here and mess around with it every single time. So this is why also it's really important to do it by groups, so that you don't have to come in here and modify it every time you have a new hire, for example. We'll click OK to that and move on to security. Now this allows you to control who can actually make changes to the files while it's in work in progress. Again, by default, there's no state security for this. So we'll start to add who can actually make these changes. Again, we'll filter to the groups. And I'll just do a shift select here to insert all of these here. And what we'll do is all these folks, we'll let them read it, we'll let them modify it, but perhaps maybe only administrators can actually delete it. If I don't include people in here, they will not be able to even read it, therefore, of course, not modify or delete either. So I don't want sales to look at work in progress because it's work in progress, right? We don't want them to do anything with this information just yet. Notice, by the way, down at the bottom, there's some extra options where you can say, hey, add the security for associated files of items. We do have some other videos on what items are and so forth. Let us know at the end of this and we can send those to you. But it basically allows you to say, hey, let's control an actual item or part number that's going to get manufactured, and any associated files with it will go along for the ride. Oh, and the bottom one too, security for files inside a folder. So there are folks that prefer to have a folder structure and control the entire folder. You could do that too. If you notice up here at the category, we saw that earlier where we have folder categories. So just another quick mention there. Lastly, the control tab is the ability to be able to say these files will be in a release state. And all this really does is it makes it so that people can use the Autodesk Vault Professional Thin client, where they can go on the web and use the intranet to have access to these files. That's really what this is going to do right here. Down here is for purging. This is really important because I've had customers very recently who had this as first and last, for example. So it'll keep a lot more than you anticipate. So usually I recommend to change this to last. So you only keep one version of this if you decide to purge files inside a Vault. And actually I said last name, but there's one more tab. And this is to be able to say, hey, automatically populated with a comment every time I do this state change. With all of that applied, let's finish up the transitions. So this is very important because right now what we did at the beginning was we edited and make sure we said what we wanted to happen when it goes from work in progress to approved. But now what's really important is how about when we go from approved back to work in progress. Just to show you the flow chart one more time, approved back to work in progress, we want to do an automatic revision bump. So we'll edit this, go to Actions, bump primary revision, and add security states so that not everybody can do it, right? At this point, we're going to decide, all right, you know what? Administrators, engineering, and product design can actually make this change and allow them to make this transition. Click OK. And there we have it. We now have the AVA lifecycle definition. You're not done yet. There's a few more parts to this, so hang on. Now that we have that lifecycle, we need to make sure that it actually is defaulted so that when we start adding files into Vault, it automatically starts using this, assuming that that's what you want to do. So under categories now, still under Vault settings, I can come over here and say, hey, let's go to the file categories. We see that engineering is right here. And we want to come over here and say, all right, I want to assign it to automatically use this AVA lifecycle one. By default, it's set to flexible, at least this database that I have here. So I'm going to go to assign, double click on AVA Lifecycle, click OK, and now it shows up there. So now every time I start adding new files, it's automatically going to go into this lifecycle. If I go to revisions now, I can start to say, well, what revision format do I want it to follow? I can hit assign here and say, well, hey, I don't want alphabetic, maybe I want numeric. So by double clicking, it'll add it. And then over here, I can default it so that from here on out, it's going to default to the numeric format. All right. One last thing to kind of bring up here is right here, you notice at the top I have these different categories. Just a little tip for some of you. I've seen this come up in a lot of our support cases. And if you have something other than base selected, what's going to happen is every file that you create by default is going to go here. If you do this, you could run into an issue with DWFs, the viewable file format that it creates when you check it in. If it starts to control that, you're going to start to get errors where it can't create the DWF. You'll still be able to check in files, but you'll have to disable the DWFs. So if you run into that, let us know, call us, report, leave us a little comment at the end if you're having issues with that. But if you are, that's what's going on. All right, one last thing to do, and that's how is the revision going to go back to the actual file itself? We control that by coming over to our properties. Now, I'm not going to make this a whole session on properties. That could be, actually, Nigel, we should probably do that as another session in a few weeks or a month or two. But over here, I can sort this by alphabetical order. And if I go to revision, this right here is what needs to be mapped. You'll notice that there's one in here already called rev number. There's a rev number property inside of your usual AutoCAD files, Inventor files, Excel files, Word files, and so forth. But this revision property is a system property inside of Vault that will actually take control over these different files. So if I want to use Vault to control it, I do have to map this. So I'll simply edit it, go to mapping, and in here I can choose a template file, for example, or even an existing file inside of Vault already to be able to say, I want to map this to a part file. Again, typically this would probably be your template, but we'll choose any one for now. And say we want to map it to revision, rev number. So again, rev number is the actual I property of the part or the assembly. We'll click OK. Picks it up, and then the mapping lets me know that it's going to push the revision number from Vault to the file itself. That's a key part right there, and you'll notice that I can't make it any other way because, again, the idea here is that Vault is going to control the actual revision number to the file. We'll click OK, close. And again, just another quick thing is if you like using the revision tables on drawings, there is a setup for revision tables as well that needs to happen if you'd like to go that route. So again, that's probably for another whole other session on its own, but I just wanted to mention it at least.
We can go for an hour or two just on revisions. I'm sure.
All right, now that we have the lifecycle set up, we've assigned it a category, we've assigned it a revision, let's actually start working with it now. So I'm going to go back over to Inventor, and from this blower, I'm going to work with the exhaust. We'll just focus on one part for now. I'm going to go ahead and check this in. Click OK. Checks it in. Now let's go take a look at what's going on inside of Vault. Quick refresh, we'll simply bring that up here. Here's the part. By default, because I use the default scheme, the first revision number it took on was 1. Don't forget that can be modified. It can start at 0 or even dash, by the way. I just used the out of the box ones. You'll notice the state here is set to work in progress as well. So, by the way, the way I brought up this column here is not there by default. You do have to right click, go to customize view, and under fields you'll be able to bring up revision, and I like to have it here kind of close to the state myself. And to move it from state to state so that it's either open or locked and so forth, well, we can come over here and say it's work in progress. We can actually use it right now, but I can either right click or use the change state button up here. Both of them do the exact same thing. It's using the AVA lifecycle, and I can say let's change this to approved now. Usually want to insert comments, or if we had that default, this is where it would come up automatically. And you notice right now I'm getting this little red, I guess I'll call it a recycle sign. And what this is telling me is that the file that I have locally doesn't realize that, hey, there's a new revision of this yet. So just so we can see the symbol all nice and neat, we'll say get it, say OK, and now we have the latest one actually. I'll come through this here and actually change it to work in progress. And the reason we'll do that is because now we will be able to see that it will change the revision for me automatically. It's also letting me know how now is, hey, you have the latest file, but the file you have, this triangle, is letting me know I have revision 1. So the property itself has not been updated. So I can just simply right click and get this. Or when I open the file in Inventor, it'll actually ask me if I want the latest, and you'll say yes. I'm the administrator, by the way, so that's why you didn't see it locked down for me, but typically what would happen is you'd have a little padlock right here when I go to approved. Now, that's not the only way to get it to change a revision, by the way. You also have over here the option to say change revision. So this is set in there because there could be cases where you bring in a file that, let's say maybe there's already a revision 3, and you want to bring this one up to current. So you want the actual property to look correct. Well, you come over here, you change the revision while it's in work in progress so that you want it to be the primary. And you notice it automatically changes it to 3 and adds a comment here at the end that it's the standard numeric format. And now it's at 3. And so a lot of times people will say the only other thing you want to think about is, are you controlling the part? Do you want the revision from the model iProper to go to the drawing? That again gets back into revisions as well, but you can actually say in your title block to follow the revision property from the part. It just depends if you're doing revisions on parts or you're doing revisions on the drawing itself. So this is why it's somewhat flexible, I'll say, or configurable. You can make it tailored to the process a little bit, right? So that's why no Vault implementation is exactly the same. And there's these different methods and workflows that we definitely recommend, though, when it comes to using life cycles inside of Vault to control your data and, again, give you the right access to the right person at the right time. So to summarize, the first thing you want to do whenever you're considering a Vault implementation is map out your workflow. Make sure that you sit amongst your teammates, discuss what would be the right workflow to have so that you can know who needs access to work in progress, who are going to be the reviewers, and allow people to make those transitions. We created life cycles, and don't forget that you have to assign it to a category, and you'll want to assign revision if you're going to use revision schemes inside of Vault as well. And then you can simply change your states, or within changing states, you can also revise the actual components. So I tried to give you a brief and kind of a deep dive at the same time of Vault life cycles so that you'll realize that it's not something scary, but it can be time consuming, right? Because you do want to make sure you lay it out correctly. You can still go back and edit, but you want to make sure you have it in a so that you have good habits within your organization to be able to control all these different files.
Definitely. And you want to start on the right foot here. You don't want to just dive in without actually realizing what you're doing. But that's what we're here for.
Yeah, for that matter is why we realize that a lot of you like to do this on your own. There are books out there on how to do this. We've even set up training, and we can train administrators on how to do it, as well as we also do this as a service, and we've done hundreds of Vault implementations. I know I've done quite a few myself, and I'm one of our resident experts on it. So I guess with that, we'll open it up to Q&A and see what kind of questions you guys have on this.
Certainly. And so, like I said before, go ahead and type any questions you have into the chat box. I'll wait for a few to come through. We do have a couple, but first I just want to mention, Jorge, if you want to elaborate on this, We do have something special for those in the Portland, Oregon area. It is our in-person Vault 2018 preview, or if you want to elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, so for those of you that are in the Portland area, at the Autodesk office in Lake Oswego on February 24th, we're having a Vault preview. So we'll have the product manager from Autodesk showing you a preview of what's to come next inside of Vault 2018.
Yep. And it's going to be probably a couple months early, like based on like what the actual release is. So if you're considering, updating your Vault, say going from an older version to a new version, and you want to see if it's worth waiting for the 2018 release, this is definitely something you can look into to see if that's something you would like to wait for.
Right, so it'll be a mix of, you'll see some stuff as videos that's recorded, there'll be some live demonstration, and general conversation and talk with the product manager himself to understand what's going to be coming up next.
Certainly. So we'll go ahead and take care of some questions while we're at it. The first one here comes from Eric, and Eric wants to know what version of Vault do I need to do Lifecycles?
So you need Vault Professional or Vault Workgroup, actually. Vault Basic does not have Lifecycles in it, but Vault Workgroup and Vault Professional do give you the ability to use Lifecycles and revisions.
Definitely, for sure. And we've got a question here. Could you send me the additional video on properties and any other videos related to Lifecycles? So certainly, Luis, we can follow up with you later today. We can get you all of the information that you need. Whatever is available to us is available to all of you pretty much. So if you do have something in particular, this is open to anybody in the webcast right now. If there is something that you want to see, something you need a little bit more information on, let us know. You can email Lifeline at KETIV or call us on this number listed here on your screen, and we can get all of those videos, white papers, blog posts to you as you need them.
Right.
And lastly here, we've got another question from David. Any issues with implementing on existing databases?
No issues there. I'm assuming you mean, hey, you might have a Vault Basic already or Vault Pro, and can you go in there and still modify and add this? The answer is yes. You can go in there and do that. The only thing to realize is it won't retroactively go back and assign all those different parts, assemblies, drawings to the lifecycle you just created. So you will have to go to those, change its category, and then you'll be able to move forward with them.
Yep. Yeah. So you just have to take some of those parts that have been involved before and kind of apply
it.
This lifecycle to those components or assemblies.
Right. And you can do it as a mass, by the way. It's not per file. You can select multiple files and be able to do it that way too, or through a search even too.
Yep. All right. And how about setting up emails for lifecycle changes? I know this.
Oh, yeah, I totally meant to actually mention that. So out of the box, it doesn't automatically send an email notification upon lifecycle state changes, but we do have a partner that we work with that has a tool that does that. It's the name of the company is called Cool Orange, and the add-on is called Power Jobs. So that is someone we've worked with, and we've done implementations using their tool, where it can be slightly customized. It actually also creates PDFs for you too. So a lot of people decide, hey, well, I want to create a PDF on a place on a server for people as well. It can take care of those things as well, so that when you create your life cycle, off goes an email notification in a PDF, for example.
Yep, definitely. And just to clarify on that, those emails, just so everyone else is clear on that, those emails are going to go to usually the person who's in charge of the next.
Well, it depends on the setup.
Yeah,
Again, it does have to be configured. So there is some out-of-the-box functionality, but it does have to be configured and so that it all makes sense and the right information goes to everybody.
Definitely. All right. And let's see here. Can a revision be reviewed and approved from within Inventor, or does it require review in Inventor and approval in Vault separately?
I think I know what you mean. Actually, let me show this. That's a good question. So inside of Inventor, there's a Vault tab. And in that Vault tab, if the file is not checked out, you'll have the ability to use these tools right here where you can change the category, change the state, get the latest revision, or revise it. So you do have the ability to do it all within Inventor without even having to go to Vault. I just usually show it in Vault because you'll be able to see the properties and everything. But now that I mentioned that, actually, one other nice little tip for you with Vault Professional is you can choose which properties you want to view in the browser. So if I want to see the revision, for example, rev number. Oh, did I hit OK? Maybe I missed it.
You mapped it to a revision, I think, Jorge.
Oh, I did rev number instead of revision, right? Yeah, so let's do revision. And at this point, we even do state. And I forgot the alphabet order here. There we go. So you see that the part itself is on revision 1, and it's in work in progress state as well. So you really could do a lot of this right inside of Inventor without having to go to Vault. More questions popping up, huh?
Yeah, some more popping up here. I can't keep up. Can Lifecycles recognize manually advanced revision levels in older models?
The answer is no to that. If you have an older model and you want to Vault to have the right revision, you do have to use that revise button I mentioned a little while ago. You can hit the revise button in Inventor, or you can use the change revision button so you can manually bring it up to speed.
Yep. So that's like if you're already on revision C or 3 or whatever,
right,
and you initially bring it in, you want to catch up to that. That's how you're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, we got one last question. Where can I get a recorded copy of this webinar? You can get a recorded copy of this webinar on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/KETIV Technologies, and all of our AVAs are on there. We have about 70 videos at this point. I think maybe more than that, which is pretty remarkable. And if there's anything that you want to see, feel free to search our YouTube channel. And if it's not there, go ahead and shoot us an email. And if we do have some content on that, I will definitely get that over to you.
So we're almost to 100 sessions now?
I think, yeah, definitely. It's pretty crazy.
I'd like to do that. We'll see.
Sounds good. All right, then I'll give you guys about 15 more seconds to go ahead and post any last-minute questions you do have. This is for the recording. If you are watching this on YouTube and you want to watch more of these sessions as they are live, go ahead and go to ketiv.com/AVA to subscribe to AVA, and watch all of these videos and get notifications for them as we go live every week at 10 a.m. on Thursday. Looks like we didn't get anything else in here, Jorge, in terms of questions, but in the survey afterwards, if you do have any requests for future sessions, definitely let us know. I think properties is definitely on the map now, seeing as there are a decent amount of questions regarding properties in Vault. We can do that soon. And I think we'll see you all next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jorge. Bye.